Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of the Cabinet of Staffordshire County Council today, Wednesday the 20th of October 2021. Good morning to everybody. First of all, apologies for absence. Mr Bradbury.
Good morning, Leader. I'm not in receipt of any apologies for this morning.
Second item on the agenda, declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Does anybody have any interest to declare? Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Chairman, I shall be presenting item 30 in the Nexus annual report, but I would just declare the normal interest being a Director of Nexus Trading Services, Chairman.
Are there any other declarations of interest? Next item is decision notice of the meeting held on the 15th of September 2021. You've had access to it. Everybody agree that that's a correct record?
Yes.
Okay, I shall sign it accordingly. Moving on then to the leaders' update. Colleagues, at the end of this month, the UK will welcome world leaders at the United Nations Climate Change Summit known as COP26. This landmark event has been billed as a make or break opportunity to bring global climate change under control. The County Council has already pledged to become carbon neutral by 2050, and we'll be hearing this morning about the progress we are making. But we can all do our bit to help make Staffordshire sustainable. How we shop, travel, power our homes and our business practices. We all have a role to play to protect our environment. Often this will improve our health and well-being and save money too. Last week we started a new interactive conversation with people in Stafford and Newcastle-under-Lyme. Signs on lampposts and benches are inviting people to share their views via text message on what more we can do locally to tackle climate change. Do get involved, and I applaud the leader of Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough Council who has been talking to lampposts of late simply because that's what we want him to do rather than because he's gone doolally. From caring for our environment to caring for those who need our help most, we have all seen recent national headlines about shortages in social care staff. The situation is no different in Staffordshire, where home care providers face huge recruitment challenges. We have launched a new campaign to show the value and opportunities that come with a career in care. With many different types of roles available and flexible hours to fit around with other commitments, this could be the perfect time to start your career in adult social care. Please go to our website to find out more and see the latest jobs that are available. We can all do our bit to protect the most vulnerable this winter. More of us are back doing things we love, seeing more friends and family. But COVID is still with us, and as people get together more often, especially indoors as the temperatures drop, we are likely to see more cases of flu in particular. Even if you are fit and healthy, think the risk to you is small, you can still come into contact with others who remain vulnerable. So the message remains to get your COVID jab or booster and book a flu jab as soon as you can. I can't emphasise enough the importance of getting your booster. For those of you who get called forward. The biggest enemy we face at the moment is complacency. Keep taking regular tests, especially if you have COVID or cold and flu symptoms, and keep doing your bit to stop the spread this winter. Finally, colleagues, I was delighted to see the final section of the Lichfield Southern Bypass open on Friday. And thank you to Councillor Williams for being there to cut the ribbon, which was a fantastic photo opportunity and also great for the City of Lichfield to free up traffic around that place. This 2.5-year project, led by the County Council with funding from developers, government and the LEP, will help reduce city centre congestion, unlock more housing development and attract more investment. Similar investment continues across the county, including the Stafford Western Access Road due to open next month, so more ribbon to cut, Councillor Williams. Fantastic. The extensions of I-54 South Staffordshire and Red Hill Business Park in Stafford 2, and across the county, working with partners, we continue to create the right conditions for business to thrive and grow, and for new investments to come into Staffordshire, creating more jobs, opportunities and prosperity for the people we serve. And the Deputy Leader will give us an update on that during his verbal report to us shortly. And so on to our next item. Agenda item number 5 is minutes of the meeting of the Property Subcommittee held on the 6th of October 2021. All in agreement?
Agreed.
Next item is agenda item number 6, update from COVID-19 member-led outbreak control board. Councillor McMahon, we're with you.
Thank you, Leader. Unfortunately, the rates in Staffordshire are higher than the West Midlands and in England, and it's the 5 to 18-year-olds that are principally driving this. And this is not accounted for by the fact that we test more in Staffordshire than we do in other parts of the country. It is a real increase. The risk to parents and teachers is clear, and there's clearly a risk to educational disruption. The decision as to how to manage these outbreaks in the schools is ultimately up to the school authorities, but we offer advice and guidance pertaining to the particular circumstances on request and are more than happy to continue to do so. Next week will be half term, and that will be a partial fire break, and we'll hope that that will help bring some of the numbers down. As we all know, the technology, there's a real game changer here, is the vaccine. Hospital admissions and admissions to ITU and deaths are a fraction of what they were with similar community prevalence earlier on in the pandemic. Although it is the case that the numbers being admitted to hospital has shown a slight incremental increase of late, and I think we should take that seriously. So the NHS is offering the following at the moment. The flu jab, as the leader quite rightly mentioned in his statement. We don't know what sort of flu we will get this year, but all those who are asked to come and get the flu jab should do so. There's a third primary dose to the clinically extremely vulnerable, which is the immunocompromised, who will subsequently get a booster. So a very small minority of the population who are extremely vulnerable will end up with 4 injections. Then there's the booster to the 1 to 9 cohorts, 6 months after the second dose. And the cohorts include all those over the age of 50, health and care workers, those with long-term conditions that render them vulnerable who are under the age of 50. The NHS is also seeking out the vaccine hesitant and the hard-to-reach groups to vaccinate them. And we also have the 16 to 17-year-olds and the 12 to 15-year-olds in schools. This is a massive program. Logistically, it's the hardest part of the vaccination program, and it's incumbent upon us to get a vaccine when we're called to do so. We will support the NHS as a county council in all aspects of the current campaign. Indeed, statutory agencies are working together across Staffordshire in order to deliver. I'm heartened by the fact that the new test and vaccination vans that offer both testing and vaccination in communities that are harder to reach, that both the County Council, the City, the Council, the Midlands Partnership Foundation Trust, and the Fire and Rescue Service are all working together to deliver this. And that sort of approach is what will help us there. For those who are young, who think that if they get COVID, they won't go into hospital, they won't have a problem, they need to consider, and I would ask you to consider, the issue of long COVID. There are fit and healthy people who find themselves not being able to function properly, suffering from lethargy and exhaustion and various symptoms some time after contracting the disease. We know that the vaccine reduces the likelihood of getting COVID, and we know it substantially reduces the risk of long COVID if you do subsequently get it. The vaccine is safe and it's effective. It's the best thing we can do to get on top of this. The other thing I would mention is that we need to show respect to others. We enjoy freedoms since July the 19th that we took for granted in the past, and we should relish that and enjoy them, as the leader mentioned in his statement. and we do not have a statutory obligation any longer to remain distant or wear masks or whatever. But those who do not feel threatened do have a moral obligation to those who do. And I would just ask that when you're on the bus, the train, the supermarket, that you don't know if somebody sitting next to you has lost a relative with COVID or has a past experience and a difficult experience of the virus. So there's two messages. Get the vaccine when it's offered. Do what we always do in Staffordshire, the right thing, and show respect to others who are more vulnerable. Meanwhile, Staffordshire County Council maintain our defences against COVID for at least until the end of March 22. That's a robust test and trace programme, managing outbreaks when they arise, support the most vulnerable, and support our NHS and other colleagues with the vaccination programme. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Any observations from members of Cabinet? Councillor Parry.
Just to say, and thank you for that very comprehensive assessment of where we are and what we need to do next. I think that we as the population, if you like, have been used to being instructed in many respects and carefully advised as to how we need to behave and what we need to do in terms of remaining safe. And I think in this newer, more relaxed, freer environment that Johnny had outlined means that personal responsibility needs to come back again, and we all need to make good quality judgments about when and why we should wear masks. It's not something that's going to be, we're not going to be given guidance and advice. We're told to, use common sense. I think Johnny's points are right, to be aware and thoughtful towards others when we're out and about in confined spaces. And if we see others wearing masks, they probably are wearing them for a reason, and therefore maybe we should follow suit and not try to be clever and cocky, as we are mindful to be, or likely to be. And so I think it's really important that we do, firstly, in terms of responsibility, getting the jab, if you haven't already had it, getting the booster when it's available to us. And I think there is a big comms, communications challenge here that we need to get out to people that the vaccine protection will diminish over time, and that booster is so vitally important to the public health of the nation. And if you haven't had it and you're called to get it, get it. If you haven't been vaccinated at all, get vaccinated. If you feel that you're in an environment to protect others, protect others. It's a small step, it's a small ask. We've just got to get back to that, not being told anymore, but taking on personal responsibility.
Councillor Tagg, Councillor Jessel, then Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to echo the comments that Ian Parry's made and also that you made, and also Johnny McMahon on the booster. I think it's vitally important that those vulnerable people that are being called get that booster. I think we had a national effort, a gigantic national effort in the spring through the summer to get those first two vaccinates out, and I don't really feel that. I don't see that. I think Ian's right. There needs to be a comms message, there needs to be a national effort, and there needs to be a Staffordshire effort, and I think we need to lead that here to say get that booster, because that's the protection. We are seeing rising cases. We're seeing them in the younger population, the school-age population. That is something which hopefully those young people won't end up with serious complications or hospital, but more elderly and particularly care homes, I think we need to ensure that those people in care homes have that booster. It's vitally important as we approach the winter. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Jessel.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Can I say, as soon as I get my invitation for a booster jab, I shall be putting my trainers on and dashing down to the vaccination centre. I think we've all welcomed the return to the freedoms that we've had the last few months, to be able to have meetings face to face, to be able to socialise and get back to some normality. I, for one, and I'm sure there's an awful lot of people out there, don't want to go back to the restrictions that we had earlier on in the year. One of the ways to do that is, if you're a young person, get your vaccinations. And if you're of my age group, slightly more mature, get your boosters. I think you have a duty to yourself, to your family, to your friends and your community. We don't want to go back to where we were. We want to retain the freedoms that we're now beginning to enjoy, life getting back to normal. People who were feeling down in the dumps, depressed, are beginning to realise life can get back to normal. So I implore everybody who's eligible for a vaccination. It's been the most tremendous scientific advance in record time. Let's not get complacent and get your vaccination. Thank you.
Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Chairman. We have indeed welcomed getting back to some form of normality, haven't we? Indeed. I agree with Mr. Parry, totally. I think the two phrases that you used, Ian, are common sense and personal responsibility. I think those two phrases are so important. I think they served us well during the early dark days of COVID, and they'll serve us very well moving forward as we recover. I think 12 months ago, maybe slightly, about 12 months ago, when the vaccine was first being administered, we regarded it then as being a lifesaver. Get out and get your first vaccine. Get your second vaccine. There was a feel-good factor around getting the first and second vaccine. I think maybe with regard to boosters, and previous speakers are dead right, Chairman, absolutely must take up the opportunity of getting your booster. Maybe there's a little bit of complacency around the administration and take-up of the booster vaccinations. I'd urge everyone to get it. And you're right, Councillor McMahon. I think young people, if young people feel that, well, if I catch it, I'm not going to be desperately ill with it, that may be the case or may not be the case. I think the thing of real worry is that if young people do catch the virus, you know, the consequences of passing that virus on to elder members of their family are just dreadful. So I would echo your remarks, Mr. McMahon, and encourage young people to get vaccinated, and absolutely encourage anyone who has got the opportunity to take up the booster vaccination to do it. It was the game changer 12 months ago, Chairman. It's still the game changer now.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. I think being an ex-nurse and seeing the issues that we've gone with COVID at first hand, I think what we also need to remember is what happened at the original start, and we were telling people, control the virus, protect the NHS, protect your family, protect your friends, get these inoculations, get your booster. Let's do that, and I think that still stands today. That's what we need to do. And I would also encourage people, especially those who are eligible, to get that flu jab as well, because I've got mine booked in next week. It's very, very easy to book them online. It's very easy to even go into the chemists to actually just book them. So everything has been put out there that can possibly be put out there, in my opinion, for what the NHS is doing. We need to protect our family, friends and the NHS and get that booster and your flu jab as soon as you can.
Councillor White, then Councillor McMahon to sum up, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I won't try and add too much to what's already been said, which is all eminent common sense. But two things that I will say are, firstly, I think it's true that many of us, most of us, I'm sure, are very tired of COVID and of making changes in our lives to adapt to COVID. But we do still need to do that. And if you do one thing in your life right now to help with the efforts against COVID, it is to get that booster jab. It is not a nice to have, it is an essential. And the second point that I'd reflect on is that in the original rollout of the vaccine, Staffordshire led the way. We were one of the best places in the country for delivering that rollout. And we should take pride in being one of the leaders in the rollout of the booster jab. And that pride should come from the fact that each of us that gets that needle in our arm is protecting not only ourselves, but everybody else in our community. So let's take pride in having those booster jabs and in Staffordshire leading the way in looking after one another as we did with the original vaccine rollout. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Leader. I concur with all the remarks that have been made. Common sense and personal responsibility and respect for others is absolutely vital in order for us to continue to enjoy the freedoms that we have. There seems to be a sense, I think, that the vaccine kills the virus in perpetuity. It doesn't. The vaccine stops the virus from killing us, and it only lasts for a limited amount of time. And if we want to protect ourselves and protect our community and protect others, then we need the booster. If we want the virus not to create mischief in our lives, and we haven't had the dose yet, then we need both first doses. It goes without saying that without that, it'll come back, and it'll come back with a vengeance. Let's remember that the hospital admissions, albeit slight, are beginning to increase. We can't ignore that. So please, show respect to others, get the vaccine, and meanwhile at the County Council, we will keep our defences going and do what we've done throughout the pandemic to do our best for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the conversation about that. Misinformation and complacency are our greatest enemies in this battle, and we need to make sure we're on top of it, make sure we're communicating effectively with the people of Staffordshire that getting the booster is vital. We need to be leading the way, the same way as we did, as the Deputy Leader pointed out, with the vaccine rollout. So let's get on it. Let's encourage our colleagues as fellow councillors at district, borough and county level, parish council level, to encourage people within their communities to get that booster, because it's the communities that they represent will be best served by people taking up the booster, so we can move on and start to get back to business. Which, as it happens, is an outstanding segue into the agenda item number 7. I should be in local news, I think. I don't know what our local news broadcaster thinks, but yes, big thumbs up from the back. Staffordshire means back to business. Oral update with the Deputy Leader, Councillor White.
Thank you, Leader. I'll upgrade that to a Radio 2 link, which is what I think they call them. So, our business community in Staffordshire continues to show the resilience and the drive and positivity that we've seen throughout the last 2 years. And the good news is that the Staffordshire economy continues to recover. And within the context of a national economy that continues to recover strongly, Staffordshire is performing very strongly itself. Within that positive news, there are some growing pains. We're not immune to the national challenges that we're seeing around energy supply, supply chains and labour shortages, and I'll come on to talk about those in a moment and some of the things that Staffordshire County Council and our partners are doing to help the business community address those challenges. But I'll talk about the trends first. So our trends are very positive. The claimant count in Staffordshire for people claiming universal credit has continued to decrease throughout the period from August to September, and we've seen that decrease happening throughout the year. And we continue to see both a lower rate of universal credit claimants than the national and regional averages, but also a higher proportional decline than those averages as well. So the number of people in productive employment continues to grow at a very good pace in Staffordshire, and from a lower point of unemployment to start with. Within that, it's particularly pleasing that the claimant rate amongst young people continues to decline as well. Young people have been amongst the most heavily impacted in economic terms by the pandemic, and it's very good that our youth claimant count is declining at a steady rate as well. The corollary of that is vacancies, and the demand from businesses in Staffordshire continues to grow considerably. We've seen an increase in our vacancy rates of 10% between August and September, which is the equivalent of over 2,500 more job vacancies in Staffordshire, and that's again much higher than the increases that we've seen nationally. So Staffordshire businesses are looking for people to feed their growth. In terms of areas of particular demand, we're seeing very strong demand in the digital and IT sectors, in social care, both for adults and children, in hospitality, particularly for chefs and waiting staff, similar to the national picture and unsurprising in Staffordshire, which is one of the best logistics hubs, not only in the UK but in Europe, a need for more HGV drivers, and also a demand for engineering staff. We have many programs to help businesses to develop the skills that they need amongst their workforce, but we also have a very strong program through our redundancy and recruitment triage service in terms of matching people with jobs where there are people who are looking for work. But I think the message there is clear, which is that Staffordshire is growing at a fast rate. We're very much open for business, and there are a good range of different jobs to match different interests out there, which is good for our economy and good for our people. Regarding some of the other challenges that I mentioned within the supply chain, our growth hub, which is a partnership of local authorities and other bodies such as chambers of commerce and local enterprise partnership, has agreed a partnership with the Manufacturing Growth Programme, which is a national programme, to run a supply chain project in Staffordshire, which will help businesses to look at their supply chains, understand how they can de-risk them and how they can reduce their dependency, particularly on vehicle movements. In terms of the energy challenges that we're seeing nationally, we have, through our Staffordshire Business Environment Network, a low-carbon evolution programme, which offers audits for businesses and access to up to £20,000 of grant funding to allow them to purchase equipment to reduce their energy usage. And the audit will provide advice in terms of non-capital ways of delivering the same, so ways you can improve your processes and the way you operate to do that. So we're working hard to address those particular issues that businesses have as our economy grows and as we feel those growing pains. In terms of a couple of other brief updates, I'm very pleased to say that our Staffordshire Means Back to Business programme, which we run in partnership with our 8 districts and boroughs, continues to do well. We're now supporting over 200 new apprenticeships around the county. Hugely important, all a pathway to highly skilled jobs that will be highly paid. We've approved over 230 grants to companies for free training, enabling them to change the way that they work in a post-COVID business environment. And we have more than 300 people who've gone through our business startup programme, and that's particularly exciting to me because Staffordshire is a great place to start a business, but we need more people to take that step. So we are helping them. So we have a mix of opportunities and challenges, colleagues, but the overall picture is very good. Our economy continues to grow. We are outperforming our regional and national comparators, and we're also leading the way in terms of our greatest challenge, which is how we deliver that growth in a green way and tackling our great challenge of the environment and reducing our carbon footprint. And the final thing that I'll mention, colleagues, is the wonderful news that JCB, one of our global brands headquartered here in Staffordshire, is investing £100 million in the development of super efficient hydrogen engines to power their vehicles. And they already have those vehicles up and running. They were outside Parliament yesterday. Their backhoe loader and loadal telescopic handler, two vehicles they sell around the world, both hydrogen powered. They're investing in developing that. They'll be in the green zone at COP26 for anybody who wants to take a look at them there. And that is a wonderful example of Staffordshire businesses leading not only nationally but globally in terms of addressing the great challenges of our age, and something, again, we can be enormously proud of here in Staffordshire. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. And if I could just add to that, I was very fortunate to be invited to the opening of the launch of the GE Academy in Redhill, which is an investment on the part of GE Engineering into young people, to get young people into engineering. The ambition of this authority is to push forward on a high-growth, high-skills economy. We don't do it by ourselves, we do it with partners, And the creation of this, the confidence that GE has to invest in Staffordshire, one of only 4 places on the planet where they're investing in this sort of facility, is absolutely tremendous. So we see this investment through JCB, as the Deputy Leader pointed out, through GE and others, and all the small businesses across the county who make up the bulk of our business community, doing great things to promote our economy. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the oral update from the Deputy Leader. There's no further comments. I'd like to move on. Thank you very much indeed for that excellent report, as always. Moving on then to the next item on the agenda item number 8, which Adult Learning Disability 2022 Community Offer, update on learning disability residential services directly provided by Staffordshire County Council. Councillor Jessel, we're with you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. In October 2019, Cabinet approved the continuation of direct provision of residential care for adults with profound and multiple learning disabilities in Lichfield in a 15-bed unit on the Scotch Orchard site. Now, in accordance with CQC regulations, it seems that we would not be able to get a 15-bedded unit registered. Their current requirements are that no unit should exceed 6. Having consulted and worked with the residents, their carers and relatives, some of these residents have actually been living together for a long time. And one of the key asks of the relatives and carers is that they be kept together. Such vulnerable adults, it would be poor practice actually to split them up. As a consequence, other options were looked at, and it was agreed the best option was to refurbish and remodel the existing Hawthorne house where these residents currently live. There is still a need for a 15-bedded unit. The numbers of residents and people requiring this service are fairly constant, but as they grow older, their needs will obviously become more complex. A number of options were looked at, and on table 1 it sets out the 3 options. The building itself is in 3 separate sections. There's a lower building, a middle section which includes the staff house, and an upper building. And the options really were looking at remodelling and demolishing part of the lower building, building a new wing, demolishing the staff house, and that would release then what's called the upper building, which could then be sold as a potential development plot. On that table, you'll see that option B, which is the preferred option, while slightly more expensive than option 1A, it is the best option. With the residents being in situ, obviously this redevelopment would have to be done on a phased approach, and this is considered the best option in terms of mitigating the disruption to those residents. In doing this, it will not trigger the requirement for a new registration with the CQC, but will provide the requirements of the residents. They will be providing 15 bedrooms with ensuite facilities and communal living facilities. It will provide the enhanced infection control measures that we've had to put in for COVID, but it will provide those enhanced measures for any infection control. We do need to look beyond COVID. There are other very nasty infections, not least norovirus, etc., etc., and that will enable us to provide a more appropriate accommodation for these people, and also, and importantly, enable them to stay together. Obviously, all these proposals will be subject to planning, and the programme would have an intended start of the spring and summer 2023, with a completion towards the end of 2024. These proposals will deliver an MTFS saving of 0.987 million over 5 years, delivered by a combination of reduced facilities running costs and staffing costs. It supports the modernisation of the service with greater use of technology and will help to facilitate greater independence of those living there. So I would recommend, my computer's shut down again, hang on. Oh, thank you very much. And I recommend that Cabinet approve the extension and refurbishment of Hawthorne House, lower building, to accommodate up to 15 residents as detailed in this report. To approve the disposal of Hawthorne House, upper building, once the new lower building development is complete, and delegates authority to the Director of Health and Care to procure and award contracts for the construction of the works. I so move, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jessel. Can I just applaud you for the pragmatic and humane way you're dealing with this particular issue? The care of people with learning disabilities in our charge is something that's very important to us, and I think that the approach we are taking is particularly to be noted, so I'm extremely grateful for your tact on that. Councillor Parry.
Echo the word you've just used, Leader, to emphasise the importance of this and the response that Councillor Jessel and officers have made to ensure that those young people have the facility that's required to support them in their living accommodation. My only question is, why is it going to take so long, given that it's so important, so critical? It seems to be 2024 seems to be a long time off, and I just wondering whether there's any way we could put a rocket up it.
It's the lead time for building materials, as best I can tell these days. Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, I'd perhaps like to emphasise how much I support this, and particularly where we've taken into account how best to deal with it and ensure that the residents are number one in our priority, which is absolutely fantastic. But I also think it does show as well where we can put some capital investment into something to make something better, more effective, and in the long term actually make savings out of that on the day-to-day running costs, which has got to be a benefit for everybody. But of course, ultimately making it better for the people that live there is the number one thing.
Hear, hear. Councillor Jessel.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you for your comments. I think the care of these residents is of paramount importance, and unfortunately I think the CQC tend to be, dare I say, a little bit tick box, and the care of these residents unfortunately does not rate in terms of their requirements, but it will provide the quality accommodation that we want. The exist building, I think in the report it's got in poor quality, which I think is being a little harsh. The County Council have tried to maintain it as best as they can, but I would call it a little tired and shabby. In terms of the time to take to start this project, I do actually agree with Councillor Parry, but this is the timescale that we've been given by Entrust. But can Cabinet members have my assurance that actually I will challenge that and see if it's possible to start that sooner rather than later. Thank you.
And I'm sure Councillor DeVille will be keeping them honest as well. Cabinet members, you've heard the recommendations from Councillor Jessel. All those in favour?
Agreed.
Any against? That's unanimous. Moving forward to agenda item number 9, Climate Change Annual Report and Climate Change Action Plan 2 with Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader. Pleased to bring these reports today to the Cabinet. Staffordshire County Council recognises that climate change and creating a sustainable environment is one of the biggest challenges facing the world today, and this agenda is one of the key priorities for this County Council. The Climate Change Annual Report before you today and the Climate Change Action Plan 2 comes before Cabinet following scrutiny, corporate review, and will also form the basis of a members' event and an official launch in November. The annual report showcases progress against Action Plan 1. Some of the highlights of that are a 25% reduction in carbon emissions. Good progress has been made despite the challenges of COVID over the past 18 months. It's included energy efficiency, of council buildings on energy efficient tariffs, and also LED street lights and the replacement with those is an example of some of the work that's been done. Also working with our maintained schools to ensure energy efficiency in those buildings, and also working with the districts and boroughs on waste collections as well, and also looking at plans for solar farm projects, and also working with businesses and also the communities across Staffordshire, working with businesses particularly using the Staffordshire Environmental Business Network. The report also details the Climate Change Action Fund, which was a member fund which councillors had to support projects across the county. As you'll see on Appendix 3 of the report, there's some really good schemes that were funded by that, and I'll talk more about the next stage of that plan for funding later. So we then move to our next Action Plan 2, which comes out of a number of theme groups that have been staffed by officers across the organisation to put forward a 4-year plan, which will also have an annual review. And this involves producing a green shoot document to map out how we can deliver net zero carbon, getting our house in order as an organisation, and also research and innovation into carbon offset options, which of course we all know we can reduce our carbon so far, but there is a level which then we need to offset to create obviously that zero carbon by 2050, which is the target of the County Council. It will involve working proactively with partners to mitigate climate change right through the planning process, creating that green infrastructure so that we don't have to go and retrofit later. Also putting out that green carpet, not a red carpet, a green carpet for jobs and skills in the growing green economy, which we want that to be based in Staffordshire. Rolling out things such as electric charge points for electric cars in our town centres and in our car parks. Programmes of tree planting and habitat protection and improving that habitat across the county. We have some brilliant sites of nature of interest. I'll be visiting one in Betley later this afternoon. I think we need to protect those and enhance those as we move forward. And of course, climate change is going to cause issues with flooding and flooding mitigation, and flood plans are a key part of the Climate Change Action Plan too. Another big part is the comms and behavioural change as well. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, Leader, I was talking to lampposts, but with a very real reason for talking to lampposts, and that is that scheme of getting that message out there about things that people can do to change their behaviour. Just the small things can make a big difference, whether it's recycling more, whether it's energy efficiency. And that's all wrapped around our Sustainable Staffordshire campaign, which launched a couple of months ago, which is a key part of how we're going to get the message out there about climate change. Every cabinet report that comes to this cabinet should contain a climate change assessment. We're going to ensure that that happens in the future. Also, Climate Change Action Plan 1, you know, a lot of delivery has been made against that, but also as part of Action Plan 2, we'll be continuing that good work and carrying that through. And also it includes, as I said earlier, a refresh of the Climate Change Fund for members. And at the members' event in November, the criteria that will be released and the scheme will be open from then until the end of February. Again, an opportunity for local members to interact with their community, to get the message out about climate change and the opportunities there are from climate change to enhance our environment and get some good schemes in. £1,500 for members to spend within their division, which I hope can make a difference and be a match funding for projects to get up and running, which will improve the local environment and make it more sustainable. Climate Change Action Plan 2 has had valuable input from the Corporate Review Scrutiny Committee, and quite rightly they were looking for measures of success, how we're going to measure this going forward as we move to our annual reviews and over this 4-year plan of Action Plan 2. And we've included some of those in the report. And also the Scrutiny Committee decided to set up a working group to work with us on Cabinet to help us to deliver this agenda, which I think is going to be really important. It will be chaired by Conor Wildman and also have a membership from across the scrutiny process to help us to deliver this and also be a critical friend as we move along on this agenda, which is important. We will be having partnerships with our districts. Sustainability Board has now been set up, which will include every district across the county to work together on that common aim to reduce carbon. Each council, district or borough and parishes all have their carbon aims, and we must bring that all together and help and spread good practice amongst ourselves and have a common theme of Staffordshire getting its carbon emissions down to carbon zero. Also, this involves working with our community, because of course, if every council reduced its carbon to zero, there would still be a massive carbon footprint for Staffordshire. So we need to work with our communities, and the many community groups that are popping up across the county to help them to deliver for their communities. And I think local members and local county councils have got an important role to play in that. And I think, just to say, climate change is a cross-cutting issue. Every cabinet member around this table is a climate change cabinet member. Every member of the senior leadership team is a climate change leader. And every officer of this county council is a climate change officer, I believe. And we're rolling out carbon literacy training across the organisation as part of this. And that's really important to get that green thread, as we call it, through the organisation so we can achieve our aim of our 2050 target with milestones along the way. Members will remember yesterday, well, not remember, it was only yesterday, the plans for the government net zero strategy were launched by the Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Indicating a green industrial revolution. We've talked about that earlier. We want to attract those jobs and skills into Staffordshire and that green carpet for that. And I think looking at that, I mean, ourselves and our officers are looking at that strategy that was released yesterday, and it does align with what we're saying here, and that's all about reducing the carbon, in a sensible, sustainable way that families can live with over the next 20 or 30 years to get to that target. And I think it's a good plan that's announced by the government, and we'll do our part here in Staffordshire to achieve those goals. Other items on the agenda today, we've seen the Staffordshire Bus Strategy, which is coming up later. Again, that green thread, the environmental impact of an efficient green bus strategy is really important. So climate change is everything that we do. And I'll say again, that green thread is throughout this document and should be throughout every document that the County Council puts forward. Yeah. And under this portfolio, it is my job to drive that forward, but working, hand in hand with cabinet members and officers and our districts and boroughs and our community to deliver that goal of net zero by 2050. Thank you. I'll move the recommendation. Yeah, okay. And the recommendations I'll be moving today are to note that the Council's Climate Change 2021 annual report, which records the positive progress that's been made in our progress and on our targets towards net carbon zero by 2050. And B, to note that the comments of the Corporate Overview Scrutiny Committee at paragraph 13 and 16, when they considered this, both the annual 2021 annual report and the draft Climate Change Action Plan 2, and then C, that we approve the Climate Change Action Plan 2, which lists our key climate change mitigation actions over the next 4 years. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. I'd just like to applaud yourself and the authority for the solid progress it's making towards achievement of net zero by 2050. But I do want to speak briefly about the date that we have set as an authority, because I have come across other authorities who've set dates of 2030, 2040 and 2050. And I was in conversation with the leader of a council, a large council, last week, whose authority has set a target of 2030. And he's been left with some sums that just don't add up in terms of achieving the green agenda. Our sums do add up, and I'm sure that finance wouldn't let us go anywhere near a target where the sums don't add up. But the most important thing, I think, in this agenda is the achievement of solid progress. And what we have before us is evidence of solid progress towards achievement of the objective. Virtue signalling by setting targets which are unattainable within the current financial envelope, or using the jargon phrase, is all fine and dandy. But actually, the reality of the delivery of some of these things is not really contemplated by many of those people who are advocating zero carbon by 2025 or zero carbon by 2030. The incremental approach, achieving objectives, moving forward to the next set of objectives is what we're about. And I applaud you for this report, Councillor Tagg and your officers. And I think this method of delivery is certainly the way ahead for Staffordshire County Council. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Mr. Tagg, for that excellent report, which I support absolutely 100%, and emphasise on the fact that all of us here have a great part to play in this, both within our individual lives and also as the role we we carry out. One thing I did want to sort of ask or have a reassurance about, you mentioned briefly about boroughs and districts, and I just wanted some assurance that we're trying to work with boroughs and districts and partners, you know, and trying to make sure that we're all going in the right and same direction.
Councillor Williams, Councillor Parry, then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. And I too want to thank Councillor Tagg for bringing this great report, showing that this administration is actually making sure that we are delivering and able to deliver some change in a right and progressed way to go forward, and not a pie in the sky that can never be achieved. I think this will really show that, and I want to just echo my commitment for my portfolio to work with Councillor Tagg, especially with highways and our fleet, to make sure that we can contribute to this great, but a very necessary change in the way that we work, and that commitment is there, so thank you.
Concur with your comments, Leader, but also the strategy will be driven by the achievability of the target over time, and that will no doubt that deadline of 2050 may well come closer as technologies allow and opportunities change. We're basing this on the known knowns, if you like, in terms of what is deliverable and achievable, and what is financially deliverable as well. So this cannot be something which means we all get to live in caves. This is something where we transition to a carbon neutral environment, and we play our part in Staffordshire, acting locally to deliver the global overall agenda. So I think it's realistic, but it may be that this is not necessarily the deadline. This is the deadline today. The deadline may well get closer as we are able and more capable of delivering change. And whilst this is also often seen as a challenge, I think what Simon's outlined is that this is also a great opportunity. And the Secretary of State for Business was on the Today programme this morning outlining just that actually this isn't necessarily a great big cost to the environment, to the economy. This is a great big opportunity to the economy. That Simon's talking about getting those jobs and that investment and the green economy, etc., etc. So there's really important opportunities in this as well. Finally, Leader, I would like to say that if it is 2050 when that final deadline is reached, I would very much like to cut that ribbon. Victoria.
Councillor Wilson, Councillor McMahon, and then Councillor White.
Thanks, Leader. Yeah, I absolutely welcome the report as well. And well done to the Cabinet Member for all he's done in the last few months to help this move forward. I do agree that working with districts and borough councils can sometimes be challenging, so it's really heartening to hear that that we're all working together so well to achieve zero carbon by 2050. One thing that I would ask is that perhaps more attention be considered on villages with electric vehicle charging points as well as more urban areas. And I know that's more difficult, but I will never stop championing villages. And finally, if I could possibly work with the Cabinet Member even more closely with regards to the community groups and see if we can perhaps put our heads together and look at the funding that we have for the Community Fund and for the Climate Change Fund, see if we can actually progress that further in coming years. That would be very useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I fully and unreservedly support this. I think it's an excellent way forward. And I just want to echo some of the words that Councillor Parry's said about the economic opportunities here. This is a planetary endeavour. And by taking this on board, the economic opportunities for Staffordshire could be significant. I'm sure it hasn't passed people by that the young have paid a significant price in terms of protecting those of a certain age when it comes to the virus. And now it's our turn. Those of us of a certain age are there to make the world a safe place to live for those who are of a younger generation. And in Staffordshire, we will do that because we do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Tagg, for bringing this very important report today. And it's always hard to follow Johnny McMahon because he's got a great turn of phrase, a planetary endeavour. I was actually going to talk about the space race because I think that the endeavour that we see on a planetary scale, and which we're playing our part in here in Staffordshire, it is akin to that. If you look at the economic and technological dominance of the United States in the second half of the 20th century, one of the big building blocks of that was the space race, and all of the technology that was developed, and then all of the businesses that grew from that one goal. Now, not a great advert for reducing our carbon footprint, the space race, but that technological and economic development is an absolute model for this, I think, and I'm pleased that that is the model that we want to follow in Staffordshire. The hair shirt is not the right way to go. We have a challenge as a country in terms of our productivity. Most of this challenge is about reducing waste and doing things in a better and more productive way. And if we can develop some leadership in some aspects of this, there will be great benefits for Staffordshire people. I mentioned earlier the leadership that JCB is showing in terms of hydrogen engines. Those engines that they're running are the first of their kind in the world, as far as I'm aware. A little further along the A50 corridor, which is becoming a bit of a hydrogen corridor, and something for government to note, I think, there, in terms of where they might want to invest some money in this green economic revolution. At Keele University, we have one of the leaders in terms of developing hydrogen for home heating systems, and a huge intellectual powerhouse there. We have all of this going on within our county. We can harness this to deliver these goals in a way that works well for our people and creates opportunities and generates wealth. And I think I'll leave my comments there, but thank you, Councillor Tagg, and I'll be very pleased to support the recommendations.
And thank you to Councillor McMahon for that timely interjection from nature. Councillor Jessel.
Yes, do forgive me. The timing was absolutely superb there, Johnny. Yes, thank you very much, Simon, for a brilliant report. And I think the underlying theme is that it's achievable. You're absolutely right, Leader, in the fact that people who are setting accelerated targets actually have no idea how they're going to achieve it. But this is all very pragmatic, very practical, and I think it's to be welcomed. I very much welcome the reference to flooding, because however successful we as a county, as a nation, as a global economy are at reducing our carbon emissions, flooding and more frequent floods are going to happen. We saw what happened in Germany earlier on this year. We're going to see that happening more and more. And I think it was only last week that the Environment Agency actually declared that they can't stop flooding. It is going to happen. And as a population, we're going to have to learn to live with it and to be able to recover more quickly from it. So I think flooding is something that, as a county council, we need to recognise is here. We're going to get more frequent events, and we've got to help people and communities to be more sustainable and manage as best as they can. I think in terms of the comments made about the planetary challenge, it certainly is. And whilst the amount of emissions this country makes, I think, is only 1% of the global total, I think our Prime Minister is absolutely right in putting ourselves at the forefront of this, because we're beginning to see parts of this globe that are becoming uninhabitable. I think the first one really is going to be, obviously, the Sahara every 25 years expands and contracts, but you're getting countries like Mozambique that are now becoming uninhabitable. That may seem a long way away, but the impact that that will have on populations moving north, and that has been predicted over the last 50, 60 years, could and will have significant impacts on countries like ourselves. We've seen by the immigrants who risk life and limb to come to this country because they want to live in this great country. So there is the immediate now. We have a responsibility, our staff, our friends and families, our communities, to addressing this issue. But my goodness, there are far more serious consequences that I don't think a lot of people have yet realised.
Councillor Tagg, if you could sum up for us.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for the commitment from the Cabinet members to this agenda. I'd just like to thank Julia, actually, Julia Jess, and also Conor Wildman for their work on Action Plan 1 that has got up to this stage. I think, you know, it's and also to Darryl, who's sitting next to me, and his team that have put the work into this, and we'll have a lot of work to do going forward to ensure we meet our targets within the Action Plan 2. And I think the 2050 date, which you said, Leader, I think that is an appropriate date for us, and also it aligns with the government, all that obviously our Prime Minister Boris Johnson was talking about yesterday. We're aligned with that, which is the best thing to do as we move forward on this. The comments by Mark, I think, yes, partnerships, Mark Sutton, really key. And through the Sustainability Board, that is how we will drive that partnership work. And in Keele University, as Deputy Leader Philip White has said, will be a key partner on this, and the other universities as well. And also the health sector, again, a massive big estate that they own across the county, and they will have their own climate change aspirations and plans, which we need to align with as we move forward. So Sustainability Board, I see, as the key to that. Working with the community Victoria through our districts, and then through to our parishes and our communities is the way forward. And I think really, Ian, Parry, the tech aspect to this, and all those green ribbons which we can cut going forward to showcase how we achieve our jobs and skills, and that change in the way we approach the way we live for a sustainable environment. There'll be a lot of that along the way. Again, aligned with what the Prime Minister said yesterday very closely, so our two plans align. And then just using that otherworldly, out of space analogy from Philip, we're boldly going, aren't we? But we're boldly going together on this journey to reduce our carbon emissions, and I move the recommendations. Leader.
Thank you. All those in favour?
Agreed.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Moving forward to the agenda item number 10, formal report of the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman, Councillor Price.
Thank you, Leader. Every year, separate to the education budget, we allocate around £15 million to provide transport for more than 2,000 children, those with special educational needs and disabilities. It's a service we are committed to providing, and each year we deal with scores of applications for supported transport. So, for example, in 2020 to 2021, we received 222 post-16 transport applications. We got this one wrong, and we have apologised to the family and put right our mistake in this case. Since we received the Ombudsman's report, we have looked again at a random sample of similar applications for post-16 students who have applied on SEN or other disability grounds and whose applications were rejected. Using the interpretation favoured by the Ombudsman, we found some examples where the applications would have been granted. So we're going to review all of these decisions, that's 50 in total, to ensure we reach the right decision in all of them. We will be doing this as quickly as possible, and where our decision was wrong, we will be putting it right immediately, and we will contact all those families to let them know how they stand. We are committed to supporting post-16 students who are from low-income families and those with educational, health and care plans who require specialist assistance due to a learning difficulty or a disability. The 15 million on transport is one example of the resource and commitment expended in supporting children with special educational needs and disabilities and those needing education, health and care plans. In Staffordshire, the number of people with EHCPs is 20% above the national average. And there are more than 6,300 children and young people who we are committed to supporting. One of the things we are committed to do is to have more children with special educational needs and disabilities educated closer to home, and to reduce the need to travel and the distance, or even staying out of county during the week, and those children we also need to focus on. At the moment, 51% of children and young people with an educational healthcare plan who are in an education placement attend specialist provision, compared to the 39% nationally. And we are providing more support for teaching in mainstream classrooms and funding the appointment of extra staff to process educational health and care plan assessments more quickly. We have also successfully bid for an extra 2.4 million to invest in creating additional places and also improving and adapting existing facilities at good and outstanding schools in Staffordshire. And therefore I will take any questions before reading out the recommendations, please. Yeah, okay. Recommendation A is to consider the formal report from the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman in relation to post-16 transport for a SEND child. And recommendation B, consider the recommendations made as part of the investigation report and the finding of report issued upheld, maladministration and injustice. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Price. This is a formality to an extent. We, from time to time, make mistakes, but not trying to avoid sounding cliche, but I'll have to sound cliche in this instance, is that we're a learning organisation. Where things go wrong, where things don't quite turn out right, we do something about it, and this is what we were doing in this case. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard that recommendation. It is clear. It's an acknowledgement of the circumstances that we find ourselves in. I'm not seeing anybody indicating. Oh, sorry, Councillor White.
Thank you, Leader. I'll be brief, but I thought it was appropriate, firstly, to echo your comments. We are a learning organisation, and the services that we provide to our most vulnerable people, whether they're children or adults, are our core services. They're the reason why we all come in to this place on a daily basis to try and improve those. And we will take the learning from this and implement it. But I did just also want to say a word of thanks to Councillor Price, who leads on our SEND agenda, and although he doesn't shout about it, is a SEND parent himself. We have a strong advocate in you, Councillor Price, and I know that you'll continue to work hard to improve our services in this area and make them very good indeed.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on then to agenda item number 11, which is the impact of COVID-19 on Staffordshire County Council's communities, economy and organisation and recovery progress, update October 2021 and way forward. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to sound slightly grandiose, but I think one way of looking at this rather large tome is perhaps as a first draft of history. I think it's very important that we place on record what we did as an organisation so that historians, when they look back, can say, how did Staffordshire County Council respond to the pandemic? And this document sets that out very clearly. We learnt a lot from the flu pandemic of 1918-19, looking at historical records. And given the fact that many of our records are, we do produce a lot of paper these days and a lot of documents, but it's quite important that we bring together what you might describe as a summative document, which allows people to access in one digestible, albeit large form, to look back at the way we did business. Further, should there be inquiries in due course, which I anticipate there will be, government and other organisations will want to see how we responded, and setting this out in a coherent form as we have done here allows people to make that examination. So this isn't so much as a discussion document, it's a document of record for us as an authority to publish. It also sets out the progress being made towards the corporate strategy, and it does so in a way which frames our corporate strategy development in the circumstances that we find ourselves in now, which is with the background, I suppose, the background rhythm of COVID that we've come to live with over the past year and a half. So the recommendations that you've got before you are that you note the impacts of COVID-19 on Staffordshire since October 2020. You note the progress being made towards resetting the corporate strategy. Note the progress being made towards delivering the high-level priorities and plans from each recovery area, and endorses Staffordshire County Council's approach to the leadership, influencing and monitoring of the recovery process moving forward. Are there any observations from members of Cabinet? No? Okay, that is the recommendation. All those in favour?
Agreed.
Thank you, that's unanimous. And can I just thank all members of senior leadership team and WLT for their input on this. It has been a fairly substantial piece of work, Chief Executive, and for that I'm grateful. Moving on then to agenda item 12, Integrated Performance Report Quarter 2, brought to you by myself and the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. Councillor Parry, will you lead us off on that, please?
Thank you, Leader, and for justice, my laptop battery's just given up, so I'm kind of busking it. But so the Council's finances remain on a kind of post-pandemic recovery footing, and it's likely to remain focused on this for the foreseeable future. I mean, that has been a significant impact on the nation, the world, and little old Staffordshire. So we are very much focused on ensuring that the county remains on a secure footing moving forward. However, the priorities of the council and its corporate plan also remain in focus, and there is much achievement that we can talk about this morning, as well as potential challenges that we continue to face. As could be expected, managing council finances remains very challenging, but they are closely and effectively controlled and managed across the organisation. And I'd like to pay tribute to those leaders and managers and directors across the organisation that have managed to control and effectively manage, as we say, budgets in a very challenging environment where finances have been pressured and new sources of funding from government grant, etc., have had to be managed to accommodate extra pressures and needs. So this has been an extremely complex and challenging time, as I say, and we can note that there has been high demand in some areas across the council for additional services which are pandemic related, and lower demand and reduced income in other areas of the council which are also pandemic related, notably, of course, a £14 million shortfall in the expected income on older people placements, or costs, should I say, in terms of older people placements. Something which was not anticipated when this budget and MTFS was constructed, but something which the authorities had to manage and will have to keep a close watch on moving forward to ensure that we are removed back into the more stable position over time, which is likely but not entirely expected to return back to a pre-pandemic normality. That's yet to be worked out, I suspect. Overall, perhaps, and unsurprisingly, the council's position remains stable, although some areas of delivery are now in amber because there are concerns about some challenges which are being managed at the present time. The budget is therefore forecast at quarter 2 to underspend at the year end by around £2 million, which is adjusted down from quarter 1 of £8 million. There's typically a higher and less forecastable position in the quarter 1 than in quarter 2, which is probably a bit more realistic. There have also been, by the end of quarter 2, savings in transitional savings of £1.6 million, which is a significant achievement, I think, across the council. There are some overspends in areas of the council which are predictable and sadly realistic in the sense across families and communities with more children coming into the care system. And there is an ongoing and large-scale restructuring and remodelling in that area as part of an innovative performance of reprovision of services, which we are this morning proposing to allocate £3.2 million to assist in this transition. And Leader, I'll leave it to you to put forward the recommendations in the report at the beginning. Although I do know what they are because somebody's cleverly handed me a tablet. I can also report that the capital programme has increased by 2.3% in the second quarter, with our capital programme now rising to 1.29 million. Cabinet colleagues may wish to raise areas of key concerns, key issues, successes and challenges in their portfolio area as we consider in a slightly more detail this morning, as time permits, the integrated financial report and performance of the Council. Thank you, Leader. And I will make the recommendations at the end or now. Okay, recommendations are that, as I mentioned earlier, that we, in one, note the challenges of performance and advises of any further information and or action required, and that B, approve the use of £3.2 million from the Exit and Transition Fund to support the cost of redundancies associated with the Children's Transformation Programme, and I so move.
Councillor Sutton, I hope you're going to come in with the second recommendation.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Yes, it would be remiss of me not to talk a little bit about some of the areas within this report that relate to things within my portfolio, you know, and particularly the transformation process that we are soon to be coming to an end. The actual reconfiguration. The district model will be in place by the end of this month, the end of September. So that will see us working in a different way, district focused, and as part of that, all those district leads are now in place and will be meeting at the beginning of next month with all the members within their area to explain what their role will be and how they will be moving forward, and that they will be a single point of contact. This will give us the opportunity to work better across the whole of the children's services that's within the county council, but also with partners as well, working on that district and borough footprint. As was alluded to, there has been some concerns about the number of children that we have in care. It's just recently not quite followed the trajectory that we hope for in order to what was in the original business case for transformation. So we're doing some work with other authorities, with some allocated funds we've had to try and understand the difficulties we're having in children coming out of care. The amount of children that come into care in Staffordshire is about on par nationally, but moving children back to families or to other things out of care has been a little bit difficulty. So that work, that deep dive will hopefully give us some information and some guidance on what we can work on going forward. So that works together with 6 other local authorities that we're doing. On some more positive news, the Building Resilient Families and Communities programme within the county, or supporting families programme as it's is now called. We have worked really well to be able to achieve within that. So far in quarter 2, with successful outcomes for 309 families through that, and that combined with the 316 families from quarter 1 means that we've already achieved 76% of the annual target. And of course, this programme, unlike the majority of other authorities, we've achieved, because of the good work, earned autonomy. That meaning we get the money up front so that we're able to plan and support and provide services through that, whereas other authorities have to have a payment by results, so they're unsure of how much they're actually going to get. So we're hoping very much to be able to continue with our earned autonomy. The next thing I perhaps wanted to talk about was family hubs. This was item I introduced at the last Cabinet, and that will build on our children's centres going forward, and learning a lot from what we've done over COVID with working in a more virtual way, and how we continue and we get volunteers and volunteer groups back into working at the children's centres and other providers. So yes, so the second recommendation that was outlined does ask for that additional that continuing funding going forward, so that the transformation process can come to its conclusion.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Children and Families is a directorate of many moving parts, and I'd just like to put on record my thanks to Mrs. Riley for the efforts that she's going through to complete the transformation. It has been a gargantuan task, okay, and I think we didn't underestimate it, but we didn't realise quite how big it actually was. And thank you to you and your teams for all the work you're doing, and thank you, Councillor Sutton, for your leadership within that directorate. You just wanted to come back briefly?
Yeah, if I can just add a little bit, and I failed really to mention in more detail about the second part and the redundancies. We've had to negotiate, consult with almost 2,000 staff, and with any change programme, there are going to be changes by the very nature of it, and the whole aim of the transformation was to be able to work more closely with families, keep children out of care, and as part of that involved us having more staff on the ground, on the coalface, working hard. So within that process, there have been a number of redundancies. They are mainly proposed to be in the more managerial roles, and this is in no way a reduction in the amount of staff dealing day to day with children and supporting them.
Thank you for that. So I'll getting back to my main point. Thank you very much indeed for your efforts on that transformation. It has been a big effort, as Councillor Sutton has added to. Councillor Price, you indicated.
Yeah, obviously SAN transformation is part of children's transformation as one. But just a couple of quick items I wanted to pick out of the report, if I could please. So SEND now is travelling in the right direction, and there have been significant improvements within SEND and SEND transformation over the past 18 months. So the SEND programme governance has now been agreed. This will provide the assurance about the progress being made. Work to develop the implementation plan is underway with partners, and this includes the CCGs and the Parent Care and Forum. The plan will be fully operational by Q1 in 2022. The head of the SEM post has now been recruited to, and we're currently undertaking the necessary checks. It's expected the candidate will be in place by January. The SEN local area re-inspection is likely to take place in November, and work continues in preparation for the re-inspection. Position statement for the 8 priority areas have been drafted and have been shared with the partners, the DFE and the NHS and other partners. Going forward, it's anticipated that the SEND transformation programme, with the full rollout of the district hub model, will provide a more inclusive system that enables the necessary early support and intervention to manage demand within our overall resources. However, this will take time and will not generate the immediate savings required to address the current shortfall in our high needs block. The Council has currently outlined, in consultation with all maintained schools and academies, a proposal for a 0.5 funding switch for 22-23, which is equivalent to about £3 million. This will be considered in school forums in its meeting in November. Another piece of work which we did some time ago, and some members may remember that some stabilisation money was put in around delivery of educational healthcare plans, and Helen and others have put a huge amount of work into that. I'm pleased to say at the moment our educational healthcare plans for the 20 weeks are being delivered on an average of 84. We're about 84%. I think the average nationally at the moment is 61. So we've seen significant improvements in that, and going forward we'd like to see more. Work is also being done at the moment around quality of reviews, and I'm pleased to say that we are definitely travelling in the right direction. So thank you.
Councillor White, Councillor DeVille and then Councillor McMahon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. And thank you, Councillor Parry, for bringing this report. And great memory you've got doing all of that without your papers. I think as a general point to consider, it's really important that we highlight the transparency that these reports deliver about the operations of our authority. We very much mark our own homework, and we're quite harsh with ourselves in terms of saying what's going well, but where are the challenges, and we put that out there for the world to see. And I think that's really important that we are transparent in that way. I was lucky enough to catch the leader's eye at this point, because I did just want to specifically comment on the children's service as well. And this is work that often goes on unnoticed, but it is the absolute bread and butter of what we do as a county council. People often focus on other things, but this is the really important stuff. And crucially, it's about making sure that our children lead better lives where they have challenges in those lives. And Councillor Price has spoken about our efforts to help children with special educational needs and disabilities and the improvements we're driving there. But that children's transformation process, which has continued through the teeth of the pandemic, is all about more children being out of care and in safe family environments. And that takes real courage and real hard work to do that in a world where we all know what the consequences are of getting it wrong. And it shows our moral purpose as an organisation that we have pushed through with this, despite all of those challenges and despite some of the difficult conversations that you have to have as part of it. That care system is a pipeline. Children come into care where it's absolutely necessary, but the direction of travel is always to try and bring them out of care and into an environment that is the one that children ought to be in a home with a family environment. And I know that the court service is struggling somewhat with that at the moment in the post-pandemic era to get those care orders discharged. And I hope that they will be able to speed up the rate at which they do that, so that more of the children in our care system can find themselves in that safe environment that we can help them have outside of the care system. And more strength to your arms, Councillor Sutton and Mrs. Riley, in terms of delivering that. It's fantastic work that really deserves to be highlighted.
Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Chairman. Really is a tremendous amount of work going on, isn't there? So important, and thank you, Mr. Parry, for bringing this report today. I think this report is all about transparency, as the Deputy Leader says. It's also, Chairman, about it's a really good indicator that Staffordshire County Council, as we've always done, spend our money in the right places. We spend our money on the most important areas of work. And I personally, and all my colleagues, I'm sure, can't think of a more important area to spend money and focus our attention than children and families. Some great outcomes that Mr. Sutton spoke of earlier. And I'd also, Chairman, like to take the opportunity of thanking Helen Riley and a fantastic team that work absolutely on the coalface, day in and day out, doing immensely important work. So, yeah, they are the people that do the work on a daily basis, and I think we can all feel assured that the best interests of our families and children are taken care of. I think on a strategic level, Chairman, it clearly shows that our focus, our money, is best spent in areas of most importance. Really good report, and I fully support the recommendations, Chairman.
Councillor McMahon, then back to Councillor Parry to sum up, please.
Thank you, Leader. From a public health perspective, there's just a couple of things I'd like to raise. There's another pandemic. It's not contagious, but in terms of its implications and in terms of its degree, it's very similar, and that's diabetes. And the referral to the National Diabetes Prevention Programme in Staffordshire has gone up, even though nationally it's fallen. And I think we can take credit for that. I think that's a good thing, and I think that's an excellent public health endeavour. Staffordshire is considered a model of practice for that, which I think is great. In terms of the Talk Suicide piece, which started on September the 10th, which was World Suicide Day, in Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, we lose 10 people a month, and that's just too many. And we will do our level best to bring that down, particularly over the festive season where it can be difficult. And finally, in terms of the Municipal Journal finalists, the gentleman to my left as Corporate Director, Dr. Richard Harling, was a finalist. And also, in terms of public health improvement, the supportive communities endeavour at the Council was also a finalist. Neither party won, but it does pay tribute to the work that Richard Harling and his colleagues do for us in the public health field, and we're extremely grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor McMahon. And we're reminded that all the staff that make us able to do what we do as an authority are to be applauded. And Mrs. Riley, you've had the accolades. Dr. Harling, he's keeping his head down because he doesn't want to acknowledge it. Well done to you too for your nomination as a finalist for that award. Councillor Parry, could you sum up for us, please?
I can, thank you, Leader, and thank you to colleagues who have reminded us that this is a performance report rather than a financial report. The finances are there, obviously, just to resource the plan. And what we've seen this morning, this is about performance and the transparency that the Deputy Leader has alluded to, the transparency and accountability that we truly believe in, that we set our stall out in terms of what we want to achieve and are prepared to be publicly accountable for that on many levels. So this is not a morning of self-congratulations. This is a morning of explaining the difficulties that present all councils, including this one, and how we are approaching meeting those challenges and also seizing those opportunities that also present themselves to us. The Deputy Leader also reminded us about the priority for taking care of the vulnerable in our society, especially children and children with disability, and that we've maintained our focus on these areas and have not been complacent in terms of making sure that they are adapted and re-provided in an imaginative way to enable us to meet the needs of the people that we serve, but also that we are responsible in ensuring that we can resource these things and they are a sustainable and stable service, that they're not caused to fall into all sorts of disruption and chaos that we've seen in some places where a grip of funding and a realization of how you maintain stability in those areas is achieved. So this council has never hesitated to act quickly and to take difficult decisions, as we've been demonstrating this morning, to ensure that services are fit for the future and are stable, demonstrating that it's not just about how much you spend, but how you spend to make sure that these things work adequately. Those councils which have chosen just to simply spend and continue to spend without realising that actually it's about the management and it's about the strategy, it's about the underlying approach that makes these things work. And I think our performance report this morning has clearly outlined those challenges in the way that have been addressed by this Cabinet and that we've maintained a grip of finances whilst achieving all of that. Thank you, Leader. And so I just remind members of the two recommendations as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
That is unanimous. Moving forward to agenda item number 13, Nexus Trading Services Limited Annual Report 2020-2021, brought to you by Councillor DeVille.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I'm delighted to bring this report this morning. The annual report provides an important update on company activities and performance of Nexus Trading Services Limited. colleagues, the past 18 months have presented incredible challenges to all sectors of business. The vital provision of care to people who need it most has presented challenges, Chairman, that frankly are off the scale. The work of Nexus in the past 18 months has provided great examples of being fleet of foot and flexible in difficult circumstances, of stepping up to the plate, and gosh, did staff step up to the plate, Chairman, and basically getting on with the business in circumstances that, quite frankly, a few years ago we wouldn't have believed could exist. With a total customer focus, Chairman, looking after each other, looking after members of staff, and looking after our clients. So just a brief background, colleagues, if I may. Nexus Care was established to provide care for people then when there was no other option available in the market. So the very first objective of the company was to ensure the people that needed care got that care at a price that they could afford to pay. In Staffordshire, the vast majority of care for people is provided by independent companies, and on the whole, these private companies offer really good quality care and good quality service. And this council offers a range of support to help these businesses remain sustainable. These companies, however, are facing increasing challenges from a rising demand, rising operating costs, massive difficulties in retaining and recruiting staff, and as a result, there's been some services within Staffordshire that were not able to provide the care that people needed, and companies have struggled. So we struggled to find providers who were able to offer this good quality care at a price that customers could afford. So back in 2017, colleagues, this council decided to develop Nexus Care Limited as a provider of care when no other provider was available. Nexus Care subsequently has provided rapid response to specific incidents, such as the failure of other care companies, and of course rapid response to help the council during the times of the first response to the pandemic. Mr. Chairman, you'll see that the report is an in-depth and very exhaustive document. There are performance indicators in there, there are graphs, there are financial indices, there's a customer service analysis. As a director, I obviously want to see these measurements and these indices. However, Chairman, also as a director of Nexus Care, I'm extremely conscious that we're dealing with the most vulnerable people in our county. We're not dealing with items off a production line. We are dealing with life and death situations, dealing with people who need care the very most. So I'm not going to take you through all of the data. However, I will just identify, Chairman, on the indices page, where the question was asked, do Nexus Care staff treat me with dignity and respect? And with regard to the questionnaire at Brunel Court, at Millrise and at School Court, there's almost 100% agreement that care staff treat people with dignity and respect. And that, Chairman, is what Nexus Care is all about. Yes, we have to balance the books, but we have to provide optimum care and we have to treat people with dignity and respect. At the same time, colleagues, we do have to balance the books, and last year showed an increase in turnover of 60%. 60%. That's fantastic when you consider, A, the challenges that we face, that we all faced in the last 18 months, and B, the nature of work that Nexus Care is in. So an amazing result with a turnover of £6.23 million. So financially, boxes are ticked. Sustainability, boxes are ticked. More importantly, as a director of Nexus Care Chairman, the box of dignity and care to our customers is very much ticked. I'm extremely proud, as a director of the company, I'm extremely proud of these achievements. And if I may, Chairman, on behalf of the Board of Directors and the Chairman, Mrs Riley, who's with us this morning, I'd like to personally thank each and every one of our employees, all 414 of them, because I know it's a cliche stepping up to the plate, but gosh, colleagues, did our colleagues within Nexus Care step up to the plate. They carried out incredible care work in unprecedented times, and our staff have worked with urgency, with diligence, with compassion, and with complete competence. Thank you very much to each and every one of our staff members, Chairman. May I now present the recommendations, colleagues, that you note the Nexus Care Annual Report, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Jessel.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'd like to reinforce those thanks that Councillor DeVille has just said. I think it shows the benefits of having an arm's length company that has that ethos of the quality of care, the dignity and respect. I do apologise for the fact I realise this annual report is for the year 2021, but I would like to say my sincere thank you to the staff and directors of Nexus for the successful transfer of Meadowrythe and Bracken care homes. This was necessitated by the previous providers unable to continue the service, and there was a seamless transfer of care, which is so important for the residents, and again demonstrates the strength of having such a company as Nexus that could step up to the plate and in a very professional way that enabled that seamless transfer. So I would just like to put that on record, although I do accept the fact that it is in this financial year, not the one on this report. Thank you.
Councillor Taggart.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome this report. It's not a criticism, but I think really the climate change impact really in this area with the use of cars in the service providers here, I think needs to be taken into consideration. The cost and the strains that will show, and I don't see any of that in this report. I think probably next year we'll be looking to see some of that going forward. That green thread we talked about in earlier needs to also stretch into, I believe, Nexus as well.
Very appropriate of you to bring that up. Thank you. Discharging your duties as Cabinet Member for Climate Change excellently there. What have you got to say to that, Councillor DeVille?
Well, I would say to that, Chairman, I say on a regular basis, Councillor Tagg, you're quite right. And I think every aspect of our work, climate change and the attack on climate change and our environment is part of all of our day jobs, isn't it? So a point very, very well made and a point that we take on board. Thank you, Mrs Jessel. I can, in conclusion, Chairman, I would just reassure colleagues and the people of Staffordshire that Nexus Care will continue to be a sustainable and a growing company. We'll continue to endeavour to reach that optimum in customer service, and we'll continue to always, Chairman, give the taxpayers of Staffordshire very best value for money. Yes, we face challenges, but we also face tremendous opportunities. And I'm very, very confident, Chairman, that Nexus Care will not only face up to the challenges, but take on board the opportunities that are there in the future in this critically important area of work.
Delinquency on my part meant that I didn't spot Councillor Parry indicating. Councillor Parry, sorry.
Very briefly, Chairman, and very much support this report. What I do like about this is that we've created, I think, a model which is fairly unique, really, in the sector, and it's not in a sense, out there to generate income. And I must say, I love the annual objectives and performance measures for next year, which, if I may just very briefly read them, are so simple. I recommend these to other businesses as well. Provide commissioned activity, maintain and improve quality, balance the books, keep the staff happy, grow the business and help the council reduce costs. It's so simple and basic, but if we can keep true to that, I think, as the activity of this organisation potentially grows, nowhere in there does it say, go out and make a profit and give us some income. It says reduce the costs, and I think that's the important thing. We're doing this, in a sense, as part of public service rather than of an income generation. We're gap filling, we're interfering where we need to be, and I think if we can stay true to those values, this will really work for us, and I think is something which others will replicate.
I'm glad you were able to make that point, and thank you for making it. It's really, really valuable that we remind ourselves of those points. We are stepping in where market failure exists, and that runs through everything that all the ethos that Nexus sets out in their report. You've heard the recommendations, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favour? Agreed. Thank you. Moving forward to Supplementary Capital Programme for Schools 2021 to 2022, brought to you by Councillor Price.
Thank you again, Leader. Staffordshire is a great place to live, work and invest, where most people enjoy a good quality of life. There are over 400 schools and academies providing education for around 120,000 primary, middle and secondary pupils. Every Staffordshire child deserves the best possible education and to leave school or college with the learning and skills that are needed to succeed in further education in the workplace. A strong economy relies on a high-performing education system to produce the workforce of the future, and young people with the right skills, attitude and ambition to meet the needs of our employees or to start a business of their own. The Department for Education has committed £1.8 billion, which is an increase of £300 million for 21-22 for maintaining and improving the school estate. The Department for Education has introduced a new system to allocate funding that they believe more accurately reflects condition need and is simpler and easier to understand. As a result of this increase, we have received a school condition allocation of £9.586 million, which is the highest allocation since 2015-2016, when we were responsible for over 300 maintained schools. This is a one-year allocation, but given that it is the first year of a new methodology, it's hopeful that the future funding will be calculated in the same way. Given delay in the funding announcement, the Schools Capital Programme 21-22 was formulated and subsequently approved by Cabinet on the 17th of March 2021, where we used a estimated school condition allocation of roughly 3.9 million. Clearly, this significantly higher allocation presents us with an opportunity to further address our condition priorities within schools. Details of the individual projects can be found in the appendices, but in summary, approval is sought to invest the remaining funding in a Phase 2 School Capitals programme of works, which would include improving education standards by addressing highest priority condition issues, ensuring schools are safe, warm and dry through the planned maintenance programme. Pointing on Councillor Tagg's issues earlier around the green agenda and the green thread, we would meet climate change and sustainability targets, deliver projects that make a difference to the school environment that are not condition driven but would have a significant impact through the priority capital projects portfolio, and finally refurbish toilet facilities that are designed and fitted out to a standard that discourages antisocial behaviour and any form of vandalism. And therefore I'd like to recommend recommendations A, consider the report and approve the School Capital Programme Phase 2 for 21-22. Investment proposals set out in the supporting appendices. And B, agrees that the Assistant Director for Commercial and Assets monitors progress and makes any necessary in-year alterations in agreement with the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Nobody's indicating, but can I just welcome this additional amount of money from government. We've been lobbying hard for this sort of thing for a long time, and I'm really grateful to government for the allocation. It's now on you, Councillor Price, on the delivery front, so we'll leave it in your capable hands. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? Agreed. That's unanimous. Thank you. Moving forward to agenda item number 14, which is Branston Locks Primary School proposed 2FE and associated section 106 contributions waived to school. And we're back with Councillor Price. Now, is it possible to have too much of a good thing? I think not. Councillor Price, we're with you.
Having me may not be a good thing, but we certainly bring some good news, so that's what we want. So under the terms of Section 106 agreement, Staffordshire County Council are to receive land and funding of approximately £8 million to enable the construction of a 2.5 FE primary school in Branston Locks, Burton-upon-Trent. The DFE have decided to construct a 2 FE primary school at this site as part of their WAVE programme. Approval is sought to pass £6.4 million of the Section 106 education contribution to the DFE to enable the construction of the 2 FE school on the site and thereafter to lease the site for the future use as a primary school. It should be noted that the DFE will be undertaking the construction of the school at their risk, and in the event the 106 contributions is not sufficient, then the DFE will be responsible for any shortfall. And I'd like to read the recommendations, Leader. So A, approve the completion of a transfer of the school land at Branston Locks to Staffordshire County Council in accordance with the terms of the Section 106 agreement dated the 14th of April 2015 between Nerton Developments Limited, is that Duck again, Staffordshire County Council, East Staffordshire Borough Council, Lloyds Bank PLC and the Section 106 agreement. B, approves the completion of a capital contributions letter with the Secretary of State for Education or such other party as they shall so direct for the payment of £6.4 million of the primary school contribution received by Staffordshire County Council under the terms of the Section 106 agreement. C, approves the completion of the agreement for the lease with the Secretary of State for Education or such other parties as they shall so direct to enable the construction of the 2-form entry primary school and therefore or thereafter the use of a primary school for up to 125 years. And D, delegates permission to the Assistant Director for Commercial and Assets to agree the final terms of the transfer, capital contribution letter and agreement for lease and heads of term. Thank you, Leader.
And good news again, Councillor Price. Absolutely fantastic news. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? Agreed. Right. Moving forward then, we're on the buses with Councillor Williams. Staffordshire Bus Strategy, Bus Service Improvement Plan. Now this was marked as to follow. It's now with you. Councillor Williams, if you could take us through, please.
Thank you, and hopefully you won't think I'm Blakey off the programme itself. I thought you might do. Members, this paper provides details of a bid for £113 million to support an improvement in the Staffordshire public transport network. The ask of government follows on from the publication of the National Bus Strategy in March 2021 and the decision by the Council in June of 2021 to commit to an enhanced partnership working with bus and community transport providers. This bid is ambitious, but in line with DFT expectations and should, providing all funds are received, provide a step change in bus service provision in Staffordshire. This ambition is in line with our climate change commitment and is part of the challenge of decarbonising transport, minimising traffic congestion and parking problems, and the plan also links to our active travel agenda as every bus journey involves a walk at each end. The bid has been shaped by input from the bus operators, results of a public consultation exercise and input from Prosperous Staffordshire Overview and Scrutiny Committee. This council recognises that many parts of the Staffordshire bus network are in a fragile state, and in this bid, if successful, will help restore the vast majority of the network to a commercial model with cleaner, greener and more frequent and reliable service provision. The details of the bid are as follows. Financial support for the introduction of zero-emission buses in Staffordshire on core routes with willing operators, combined with a strategy to increase frequencies to make the services more attractive, circa £33 million. Financial support for the implementation of bus priority measures to improve journey time and reliability, circa £7.5 million. Financial support for improving and maintaining on-street bus infrastructure, including passenger information, circa £21 million. Financial support for improvements at key bus station hubs across Staffordshire, circa £23 million. Financial support for the introduction of a discounted fare structure for younger people, leading to a long-term new commercial product for younger bus users, circa £11 million. Financial support to help the Staffordshire Bus industry and community transport sector recover from the global COVID-19 pandemic, and assistance in shaping the new urban and rural Staffordshire bus network to ensure it is fit for the future. This will include targeted pump priming, new evening and weekend services that are expected to become self-sustaining or commercial, circa £16.5 million. And finally, financial support to develop skills in a sector to ensure delivery of aspirations of the Staffordshire BSIP and provide a coordinated approach to marketing and ticketing, circa £1 million. The bid covers both the urban and rural areas of Staffordshire, and learning from the introduction of demand-responsive transport in the Staffordshire Moorlands area as part of our successful Rural Mobility Fund Award will be used to shape services for the future. The Staffordshire Bus Improvement Plan offers a great opportunity for Staffordshire. Improving the bus network could play an important role in delivering our key priorities, including access to employment and key services, town centre regeneration, and contributing towards achieving net carbon zero. On a personal note, I just want to ensure that members are aware that this is for the bus services to take on, and everything that we are committing to asking DFT for funding for will be for them to carry on in the future, and this will not be a county council debt. Therefore, I recommend that Cabinet A note the comments and suggestions of the Prosperous Overview and Scrutiny Committee when they reviewed the emerging priorities of the BSIP at their meeting held on 16th of September. B, note the key issues highlighted by the BSIP public engagement exercise. C, approve the key asks of the Staffordshire Bus Service Improvement Plan as outlined in this report, and to authorise the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport to finalise the required documentation and make any final minor changes prior to the 31st of October 21 deadline. And D, authorise the Director of Economy, Infrastructure and Skills to submit the final BSIP to the Department of Transport by the deadline of the 31st of October 2021. I commend it to the Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. And in the old phraseology, you've got to be in it to win it. And so I commend this to Cabinet. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. Leader, yes, welcome this. And as you said, you've got to be in it to win it. And I think really pleased about the greening of bus routes, basically by having the infrastructure in place and those low emissions buses in place will be a real improvement. We know that travelling by public transport and buses cuts down individual carbon footprints, so this is a step in the right direction. But people need to see, people want a comfy bus, they want a clean bus, they want a reliable bus, and they want those things, or else they won't use that public transport. So through the other measures and the cash that's coming into the bus network for Staffordshire, we'll hopefully be able to achieve them. Just one concern, it says willing operators, doesn't it, to take this forward. Have we any indication that the operators are willing and the key ones will deliver this for us? And what if they don't? What happens then?
Councillor Jessel.
Yes, I think this is to be welcomed, and thank you very much for this report. I always have a degree of cynicism about the ability of some of our local bus operators and their ability to innovate, to provide a good quality service, and I'm sure my cabinet colleague will very much have an eye on making sure that they deliver. My concern is they'll, you know, if we're successful in this bid, the money will go to these companies because it's their responsibility, and then after 5 years they'll either stop running these services, which they seem to do with monotonous frequency with minimal notice, and we're back to square one, which would be most regrettable. This is almost a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them to actually show the taxpayer and the public what they can do. The one thing, looking at paragraph 10, I'm amazed in terms of the most frequent reasons for travelling by bus. Only 17% is for education. Now, if you think the problems we have outside most schools of parents parking their car, I'll use that term loosely, the problems it causes in terms of congestion, pollution, etc., etc., they have a captive audience. We know how many thousands of students need to access school, quite a few of them outside just normal walking distance. And there's a real opportunity for public transport providers to capitalise on that. And obviously, you know, one of the parts of this scheme is to have reduced costs for students. So I welcome it. I've yet to be convinced that public bus providers in this county particularly have the ability to provide a sustainable, desirable service that people want to use, and that is the challenge that we need to set them.
Councillor Jessel, I think that's the sound of the gauntlet being thrown down to the operators, isn't it? And I do think that this is the perfect opportunity for them to step up and demonstrate to us how they can innovate, how they do set about attracting customers rather than just being something that's there that they expect customers to turn up to. Councillor Williams, could you sum up for us briefly, and then we'll take the vote.
Thank you, Leader. I think from Councillor Tagg's point of view, we have to be aware that not all bus operators work the same. They are in competition, but there are willing and there are less willing. And what we're trying to do is definitely work with the willing and encourage the less willing. Completely agree with your points about challenging, and I think this is a good way of doing it. This is obviously it is a very optimistic and challenging, but also ambitious amount of money we're asking for. Whether or not we will get all of that is doubtful probably, but however, we're going for what we can get, and we will obviously alter whatever the parts within that plan accordingly. But I think this is a definite positive for Staffordshire that's out there, and I think I have got to applaud the teams. We were given very, very short time frames to get this through, and Louise and Clive have been working diligently with bus operators in difficult situations with some to be able to get this here. So I think it's a real step forward, and I hope, and I think it will ensure that people, the Staffordshire, our customers, are looked after better.
Thank you. And just to add to your praise of the team, Clive and Louise Clayton have been excellent. So thank you to them. You've heard the recommendations, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favour? Agreed. It's unanimous. Thank you. Moving forward, it says agenda item number 17, but at this point in the agenda, I have to introduce an urgent item. I move consideration of the urgent report, which was not available at the time that the agenda was being published. That report being one on the Household Support Fund. Councillor Sutton.
Yes, thank you, Leader, and thank you for allowing this report to come before Cabinet today. Members will recall that over the last 12 months, as a county council, has received a series of what were then referred to as COVID winter grants, where we have allocated that money to help and support some of the most vulnerable in Staffordshire. A lot of that through providing vouchers for children who are entitled to free school meals, or the families of children who are entitled to free school meals. And colleagues will recall, I think it was back in October of last year, we were one of the first authorities in the country to use this funding in such a way. We have now been allocated a further grant. The name has changed slightly. This is now the Household Support Grant. And as an authority, we have been allocated over 5 million, and this money to be allocated between now and the end of the financial year. And the reason for it needing to come urgently here today was because the level of spend needs a cabinet approval, and secondly, if we'd have waited till the next cabinet meeting, then it would have been too late to set the ball in process. So we intend to allocate within this report this money in 5 particular areas. The first, and I'll go through those in briefly. So the first one would be what we're referring to as a proposed education support fund, and that would detail giving £15 e-vouchers for each week of the Christmas, February and Easter school holidays to families of children entitled to free school meals. Secondly, a proposed targeted support fund, and that's very similar to the first one I've mentioned, but that would be to families of children that would be entitled to free school meals should their children be of that age. So it's for younger children and children and families that for whatever reason don't necessarily go to a maintained school. Thirdly, the proposed district assistance grant for food and essential supplies that will be distributed on a district basis. Then the proposed winter warmth project, and this will build on the winter warmth project of last year, and so we're engaging with Support Staffordshire, Beat the Cold and the Staffordshire Community Foundation to develop a winter warmth project for this coming winter, and that will be allocated as such, and that will be a total of around about £1 million of that. And then the proposed district and borough fund. Now the fund now allows us to allocate money to support families who may have council tax deficits, and that will be allocated to the districts and boroughs to administer, but following the guidance that has been set out. And then there is a small amount within that for the administration of that. Can I take this opportunity now to thank very much Natasha Moody and her team, who have managed to put this together in a very short timescale, and we'll have to continue working on this as we go forward. The recommendations, if I go back to the beginning of the report, Leader, are: I recommend that Cabinet A acknowledges the anticipated receipt of £5,506,547.99 from the Department of Works and Pensions in relation to the Household Support Grant. B approves the proposals for usage of the fund. C delegates the authority to the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People in consultation with the Deputy Chief Executive and Director for Families and Communities to decide the eligibility criteria for distribution of the fund in Staffordshire, and to take all other subsequent decisions to ensure that this support gets to those who need it as quickly as possible. And finally, D acknowledges that the delegation to the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People includes authorising the County Council to enter required contractual arrangements with partners and providers where required to deliver the fund in Staffordshire. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. And 99 pence? You couldn't have got it rounded up by a penny? No? Okay. Thank you very much indeed. You've heard the Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I wholeheartedly support this. It's fantastic for those who are in need of help over the winter months and going forward, so it's a real lifeline. I just have one very quick question, and it's going to be an obvious answer. Page 46, where it's referring to the district and borough councils and the percentage of deprivation, and South Staffs has 0. Is that purposeful?
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome this. And I think there's a lot of debate about ongoing support for families, isn't there? And there has been, in the press and media. I think this is crucial because we've come out of such a big shock, haven't we, with the COVID? It's affected the environment, it's affected jobs, it's affected people's lives, it's affected social cohesion. So I think it's the right thing to do, particularly as we approach the winter. I think I really welcome the council tax debt, obviously money that will go to the districts. That's often the first indication of people getting into trouble financially. So I think we can really do some good money with that work in the districts to help people. And speaking as a district leader, that'd be welcomed. I think also the county council's got a proud record in this area, hasn't it? Of we were ahead of the game on the vouchers for lunches when there was a lot of national hoo-ha going on about it. We were delivering here, so I'm sure we can use this money, we could have done with the extra penny, couldn't we? But use this money to really make a difference for families in Staffordshire across the board. Thank you.
We did, and Councillor Sutton did blaze a trail with the vouchers last year, and it came at some cost to me, getting berated by other people in the political sphere who thought we were too far ahead of the game, actually, and other people caught up with us. So I was very pleased for us to be in that position, notwithstanding the brickbats that we had to endure, albeit momentarily. Councillor Sutton, if you could sum up for us, and then we can move to the vote.
I could, and if firstly I could just speak to the point raised by Councillor Wilson. Yes, the deprivation percentage have been worked out, and yes, South Staffordshire within that spectrum comes as having no allocation for deprivation. Great detail. I'll be honest. I'm not able to go into them, but I'm quite satisfied that officers have used the correct information and tables around deprivation to come to that conclusion. Yeah. So as the leader said, we started this process back in October of last year. The funds are being allocated as detailed in the report. I'd just like to emphasise a little bit as well that during the Christmas period, the holiday activity and food programme, where children entitled to free school meals will still be entitled to go to activities where there are food is being supplied, will still continue, and hopefully going forward, that scheme that combines that activity with food during holiday periods be something that will be continued by government once we get the three-year budget later in the year.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
It's unanimous. Moving forward then to agenda item number 17, decisions taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers. I recommend that the decision taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers as detailed in the report, that is Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture, in approving a variation to the agreement to manage and deliver Shenstone Community Managed Library, replacing the existing contract term, 5-year, with an option to extend for a 5-year period with a 10-year term commencing in March 2022. All those in favour of that recommendation?
Agreed.
Agreed. Moving forward then to the forward plan of key decisions. In November, all in public, we've got the Treasury Management Half-Yearly Report 21-22 brought to you by Ian Parry. Again in November, Future Replacement Care Services Learning Disabilities brought to you by Julia Jessel. In private, we've got Grant Award Expenditure Green Homes Grant brought to you by Julia Jessel. Moving forward into December in public, we've got Burton Town Deal River Trent Cycling Footbridge Update brought to you by David Williams. In December, we've got VCSE Capacity Building Recommissioned. It's no good, I'm going to sneeze. Or am I? I'm so sorry. So sorry. Got it. Get a grip. VCSE capacity building recommission brought to you by Victoria Wilson. Integrated service model for in-house day opportunities and respite brought to you by Julia Jessel. Again in December in public, the IA 2609 framework for responsive property maintenance and day works brought to you by Councillor DeVille. Mark. Also in December, Burton Town Deal proposed library move brought to you by Victoria Wilson. In December again in public, diversity and inclusion principles and objectives and action plan brought to you by myself. December, proposed relocation and expansion of St Leonard's Primary School, Stafford, brought to you by Jonathan Price. In private, Chatterley Valley West project update, brought to you by Philip White. Moving forward to January, strategic plan and MTFS, brought to you by Ian Parry. Strategic plan and MTFS, again in January, brought to you by Ian Parry. Is that a duplication? Twice. We're doing it twice. Excellent. Just don't get it right first time. In February, business case for care home developments, brought to you by Julia Jessel. February, integrated performance report, Q3, brought to you by Ian and myself. And then finally, in trust service delivery agreement, brought to you by myself. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the forward plan of key decisions. I now move to agenda item number 19. Kerry, I'm afraid it's time for you to leave. I'm afraid you're relieved of duties. The Chairman to move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following exempt items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 indicated below. I so move.